Is there anything, before we start, is there anything that you don't want me to ask about or talk about?
No.
What makes you you?
That's a good question.
How does the school environment come into play with your personal mental health experiences?
The school environment is stressful, to say the least. There are a lot of expectations and a lot of pressures from both above and around the student. I know this firsthand, having gone through high school in its entirety, and even middle school and elementary school, and also being on the college scene since I was in 7th grade. The pressures are very much there.
I suffer with ADHD, anxiety, and depression, and like that's such like a combination to where like it gets hard, cause like I could seem so fine like talking to like people like normally, but like as soon as like I get home, like everything just gets worse, and like I feel like that's something that's with like a lot of people who deal with mental illness, like they're fine around people, but then once they get alone, like it feels like nothing's right.
What's different when you're alone?
I'm not as funny. Like that like I just can't seem to find joy really in much. 'Cause like I don't know. I try to hang out with like a lot of people and stuff, but like, you know, a lot of people don't hang out with you. Well, more me. 'Cause like they think I'm weird and stuff. So, but when I'm alone, it gets hard to like see it tomorrow most days.
When I was 9, I was diagnosed with depression. I had flipped my stepmother off, and she had taken my finger, and she'd broken it. So, a couple of days later, because my father was on a business trip, it was the first time I tried to commit suicide. And then, I think after that was, my older brother had found me, and I owe my life to him. He did everything he could. He got me to the hospital and everything. And a couple of years later, he moved out to North Carolina with his mom. And that kind of broke me a little bit more. I started to kind of distance myself from people. I didn't want to trust anyone because I felt that they were going to leave just like he did. And that's when my doctor told me I had social anxiety because I didn't want to be around people anymore. And then when I was 12, my father passed away. And it just kind of got worse from there. He had 2 kids with my stepmom, and for 2 years I had gone over to her house to see them, and she kind of triggered my body dysphoria. She would never let me eat. She'd tell me that I was getting too fat and that no one was ever gonna like me. And I was between 12 and 14 at this time, so I was kind of shocked that she would say something like that after telling people that I'm like her daughter. And that's when it got to the point where I would see something and I wouldn't like it, so I would have to change it at that point. If I didn't like how big my thighs were, I would saran wrap them at night to try and keep them condensed. And I feel like sometimes all of it just kind of hits you at once.
I think I've had anxiety since I was like in kindergarten, or maybe even before. But I think like depression started for me when I was in 9th grade. I just started getting like really lonely, and I felt like, I don't know, like I felt like no one cared about me. I was in like a smaller group of friends, but I mean, I didn't really talk that much. I'm not much of like a talker like in social situations, so I would like sit off to the side and like listen in, I guess, but I kind of felt like I was being pushed out of it. I guess looking back at it now, like I don't know if, it could partly also be me, like not talking, but I'm also not, like an outgoing person. So I kind of like took it personally, and I started thinking and believing that like I didn't matter to my friends, and I didn't belong.
So I've had issues with like anxiety and depression. Um, it started at like freshman year of high school. I remember like very distinctly during basketball tryouts. I had like a panic attack, and I've always had like really bad asthma. So I thought I was just like having like an asthma attack or something. But after like the tryouts were over, I was like still feeling like really on edge. I just remember like crying in the car, like I don't know what's wrong, like I don't know why I feel like this, like I just feel really overwhelmed. But my sister has also had like issues with this type of stuff, so my mom was like, let's try to like see somebody, like even if it's not like a bad thing to go talk to somebody just to figure out what's going on and to like make sure you're okay. Because I was playing like basketball, soccer, like and lacrosse at the time, and I'd like just started taking AP classes. It was like it's probably just a good thing to check to see to make sure you're not overworking yourself.
It started around middle school, like the end of 6th grade, beginning of 7th grade, where I couldn't get to sleep. Just without understanding, without explanation, I could not fall asleep. And I thought maybe it was because I had some like lack of melatonin or something in my system. So maybe it was just some sort of chemical imbalance. I didn't know. But the more I dealt with it, the more I came to realize it was just all my daily experiences running through my head, and an overactive mind, maybe even an overactive imagination. Since that time, the beginning of middle school, I can't bring myself to fall asleep until at least maybe 3 in the morning, and have started living just on 3 to 4 hours of sleep every day. And it's a blessing and a curse in some ways. In some ways it allows me to be up for my friends and to talk with them, to be there for them, or just to have fun and laugh. And sometimes it is an awesome, beautiful, quiet time to read, to write. I love writing, and that's a time where I can focus, just at night with the silence, or maybe some rain, and an open window, a desk and a lamp, and or even if it's in my notes app in my phone, and I'm just there with my thoughts. But on the other hand, sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it makes me horribly tired throughout the next day, and I don't drink coffee. Sometimes it makes me angry very, very quickly. I have a short fuse with my brothers or with classmates, and don't want to speak with anyone, don't want to talk to anyone or do work. And sometimes that fatigue just snowballs, especially when I have that situational, some situation that upset me, or situational depression. I know that the most recent time that I had, do have that depression is now, actually. Just, I had a friend who I love dearly, leave for New York City. And This isn't something I've said to anyone else before, so it's kind of weird, and it's kind of silly at the same time, but I've never been in a relationship. I've never dated anyone, and I've only ever had feelings for two people, true feelings. Like, yeah, I've had crushes and whatnot, but I've only had true feelings for two people. And I was a kissing virgin, if that is a phrase that exists, up until July 4th this year. And I loved that person, and then they left. And the leaving wasn't something they could control, but what they do while they're away is. And slowly losing communication with them and hearing about what they do through other people, it makes me struggle with the feelings that I have for them. If I wasted something that I was saving for someone else, if what I did with that person was heartfelt. And kissing this person actually helped me get over unrequited love from like a year and a half. Like, I had been stuck on someone for a year and a half, and then this person who had already been in my life took a more prominent role. But then they didn't reciprocate in the same way I thought they would. And I find myself awake at night, writing a lot about them, thinking a lot about them, listening to the same song on repeat. That just happens to be in my head because of them. And it's a silly, like when I look at it with my brain, it's a silly thing to be hung up on, and it's a silly thing to be sad about, but the longest pathway, some people say, is from the brain to the heart. And so I'm stuck there. In other instances, my brother is suicidal and was in the hospital for 2 weeks maybe because of attempted suicide. And he opened up to me in a way that I was very proud of him for doing, and thankful to him for doing. And we talked a lot, and we would leave the house at night and just go on walks or go on drives and just talk. But that didn't stop him from being in that place of mind. And I refused to accept for myself that I could do something, or that wasn't phrased correctly. I refused to accept for myself that that there wasn't more that I could do, and I was upset with myself. Very, very much upset, because despite what we had been through together, we grew up with each other, loving each other dearly, very close, and I watched that rift between us grow, only to be brought together by something so serious. And then, despite how close we got, it wasn't enough. Thankfully, he's alive and still with us and thriving again. But that doesn't stop that dark time in my life from casting a shadow over my thoughts, over my waking hours, especially the ones that I spend awake late at night. Those are just a few examples of like the situational type of depression.
So I've experienced mental illness since I was kind of young, just with family life and family problems. And so that kind of shaped how I went into school. So I had to get pulled out of class because of counselors and stuff, so that really affected my academic process. And going into middle school, that was not very fun, with anxiety and just a bunch of stuff coming out. And that kind of reformed as I went into high school, because it got better in a way, as I was able to reach out for more help with mental illnesses.
In I don't know, I want to say December maybe, I started self-harming. And then my parents found out shortly after that, it wasn't that long. And so then I started seeing a counselor, and I didn't want to go, but my parents made me go, so like it didn't work because I didn't want it to. I didn't want the help. I didn't like the counselor. She was really old and she looked like my grandma, and I wasn't really about that. So I didn't really like get into it, and she was like, I don't know, talking down to me because she was like acting like, I don't know, I felt like she was treating me like I was younger than I really was. So I only saw her like, I don't know, maybe 3 times, and then I convinced my parents that I was fine, that I was feeling better, and so then they stopped the therapy and I didn't have to see her again, which I really appreciated because I didn't want to see her again. So then everything was fine until, well, no, everything wasn't fine, but like I was like stable-ish until like the summer, and then it slowly started declining again, and then in November 9th of 10th grade, I tried to take my own life, but then I like scared myself and I walked myself to the hospital at 2:30 in the morning, and I went to the emergency room and I checked myself in, and then my mom came and my dad came, and then my church pastor came and brought me Panera, except I didn't eat any of it because I didn't feel like I deserved to eat any of it, especially the cookies, even though they looked really good. But then I talked to the social worker, and I wanted them to admit me to the hospital because I just, like, I wasn't doing good, obviously, but she seemed to think otherwise, so she was like, there's no beds anywhere available unless you go to Buffalo, and that's like an hour away, so we are just going to send you home. And so they sent me home, and then Mobile Crisis came the next morning, and I talked to them, and I didn't really like it because the lady was like giving me ultimatums and stuff, and was telling me what to do and what not to do, and I thought that it was extremely unnecessary of her to do that because I was in a very emotional, vulnerable state, but she just decided to like keep telling me like things, and so that's besides the point. They admitted me to partial, and I went to partial hospitalization at Strong for the month of December.
Last 2 months of my junior year, so probably like, I gotta think, like 5 months ago was that? I think so, yeah. That was my lowest. That was where like I genuinely became worried with like my own safety and being alone, and like it's never really been like that. Like I've always felt uncomfortable being alone, but it got to the point where I was like, I really don't care, like if I don't wake up tomorrow, and like that's that's such a common mindset. So like I took it as nothing, like, and I should have like acted a lot sooner than I did. But like 5 months ago, like I really didn't want to wake up every night. Like it was like I would wake up and things would just go by so slow, and like I just couldn't wait to go back to bed, like just for the chance I could like something bad could happen to me in my sleep. I don't know, it's kind of weird, like a weird feeling that like kind of took over, and then like I eventually got admitted into partial, and I would love to say that helped, but I feel like it just made me more mature mentally, like about like the concept of depression or like mental illnesses. So, yeah.
What circumstances led you to go into partial?
I tried to kill myself. I was in my room, and like my mom walked in right before I did. Well, like a few moments after, like I started crying, and she was like, "This can't like continue," and I was like, "It's not something new. Like I've been dealing with it for so long. Like if I got admitted into partial, like even a year before then, I feel like things would have turned out a lot better for me. Like it shouldn't have gotten to the point where like I really just wanted to die. And it did. And then like that's when we acted. And like going to partial, like it wasn't really, it was kind of against my will. Like, 'cause my mom made me. I'm just glad that I didn't like kill myself. Like that's probably like some days I do wish that I did, but I feel like it's a very common thing to want to die or to like want things to stop. And like I should have like, and then now I know like how to handle it differently, I guess. But yeah, that was when like it was kind of more eye-opening for me.
Can you explain a little bit of what partial is?
Yeah, so it's a day program. It's from, I don't know, is it 9 to 2?
Yeah.
So you go in and you have about 3 hours of school total, but they're split up with the other groups you have. And then you have a snack and you have lunch. You have activities where you go up to the art room or the gym, which is on Wednesdays, I think. And then you have a teen issues group where it's like group therapy, healthy alternatives, and some other group that was like a coping mechanisms, I believe. And then along with that, you meet, I mean, you can meet as often as you want to with your designated personal therapist. There's like 4 there, and each patient gets is assigned to someone. They ask you in the morning if you want to meet with them during that day, but if you say no, like you see them, I think like either once or twice a week, regular like schedules. Yeah, so that's kind of like the same thing every day. And then, but it's not on weekends. And then you go home, and then you just stay at home after. So it's more like a day program. I was on a youth retreat for a church, and I kind of took that as like my last thing. I was like, if this goes well, and if if this goes well for me, then I'll stay. But if it doesn't, then I won't. And so I remember going on the youth retreat, and the topic of it was like highs and lows, I think, which was like super relevant to like what I was dealing with. So like there was that, and then there were just like discussions and like notes from my friends that I got that made me like question everything.
Can you tell me a little about those?
I don't know, like I was just like, I guess I got what I was looking for. Like there were people that reached out to me, like not that there were like any signs, but like just people being friendly and like acting like they liked me and that they wanted to be around me, and that just confused me because I didn't get that anywhere else, and this was kind of like the determining factor, I guess. So it was just confusing of like what my next step would be, I guess. So I gave it a couple more days, And then I used school as my determining factor, which, you know, it's school, so that I just decided that that was it.
Did you really want to end your life, or did it just hurt so much that you thought that was the only thing you could do? You know what I mean?
Mhm. You know, I mean, I've thought about that a lot, and it's not that I was concerned about leaving. I was more focused on what would come after. I was focused on people's reactions and what they would do and what they would say if I wasn't here anymore. And I was focused on, like the emergency part of it, like what would happen if I went to the hospital, and like what would happen if this happened. And I think that that's because I wasn't getting the attention that I needed, like emotionally, and I wasn't getting, like, I don't want to say like the attraction because I feel like that's the wrong word, but like I wasn't getting, I don't know, I felt like empty. I don't know, I think I've always been concerned with people's opinions of me and their, I don't know, just like their actions towards me, and like overanalyzing it. I mean, I guess I was just looking for just more attention and maybe validation for what I was feeling, and for someone to notice. So I guess I think that that's what it was, is to make.
When I was in 7th grade, it was about a year after my father had passed away, and I was hanging out with people that just weren't good influences, and I feel like hanging out with them made me feel worse about myself because I didn't want to do the things they were doing, but I still wanted to be their friend. And I think I kind of alienated myself from everyone else because I felt that they weren't including me, so no one was going to include me. So 7th grade.
What kind of thoughts were running through your head at that point?
At that point, I thought it'd be easier if I had just never existed at all. If I had never made any friends, if my mom had never even had me, her life would be easier. It's just, I felt really regretful. And now looking back on it, I think that there's no reason for me to feel it.
I used to cut myself. I would, and just saying that is so weird to say. Like, I have done that before, but like now it's like, I don't see why I felt the need to. Like, in the moment, I definitely saw a need to, and I just wish I went to something different, or like I would like not eat, like just for like really the heck of it. Like I wouldn't, and I would think that that was okay, and like I would drink, like I would use drugs and stuff, and like it's opened up my eyes, like the amount of like unhealthy things I could turn to versus the healthy things, and like how like the unhealthy things are more like helpful in the moment, kind of, but like the healthy things take like too long for me. So, like, I turned to, like, other things, but I wish I didn't, but it kind of made me who I am.
There were thoughts about what the point of what I was doing on a daily basis was. I just found myself asking a lot of questions, and wondering or trying to find out in some way if what I was doing was worth it. Because I would find myself going through the motions, acting out of routine because it's what my body and mind knew to do. It's just how they acted out of habit. But if I let myself be idle, and I found a time where nothing was going on, then my head would wander to, well, why? Like, why are you even trying? And that question would turn into the answer of, it's not worth trying, and you should stop trying. And I would notice when those, I notice now that when I would be in those positions, they would affect just how I lived my life. It was very unenthused, didn't want to do anything, didn't want to be with people, and even things that I'm passionate about had trouble rousing me.
I was kind of like a part of like a bigger group of friends like my freshman year of school, and I found as it kind of kept getting worse. Like I wasn't really figuring out how to deal with it at first. They didn't understand either, and I don't think they meant to do it, but they kind of just like pushed me to the side just because they weren't sure how to react to it. So I felt really isolated, and that was like really tough for me. And my sister was always around when I was growing up. She lives in Florida now. She's like a little bit older than me. So when I was younger, I was always used to having her to talk to, and like if I wasn't with my friends, I would always be with like her or her friend, and that was like really the first time that I had ever been by myself. So that was something like really difficult to deal with. And I felt like really alone at school because I wasn't talking to them as much. I felt like all I was doing all the time was just like going to school, doing homework, just like the same routine like over and over. Like it wasn't fun. Like I wasn't like enjoying life. I wasn't happy. I just like didn't want to get out of bed every day to just go do the same thing over and over, not really have anybody to talk to in school.
Do you feel like you have a good support system?
Yes. From other people, I do have a very strong support system, but for myself, no. Like, I feel like the other people are supporting me a lot more than I'm supporting myself.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, and it hurts them when like I'm not doing okay, or like things like get rough again. Like, I don't know. I do have a very strong support system, and I'm very like thankful for that. It just sometimes like the pieces don't all fit together.
Do you have someone yourself that you can go to when you need help?
So here's the thing. I do and I don't. I know without a fact that those people exist in my life. I could name probably 5. But I don't trust them.
Why is that?
I don't know exactly. I don't know entirely. I trust them in the sense that I love them and trust them to do something for me, or trust them to be there, but I don't take advantage of the trust that I have in them, is probably a better way of saying that. I don't open up to people. And I don't know if the camera's presence changed that in how I was able to open up, or just the fact of not knowing you guys well. But I don't really share that part of my mind, my thoughts, and I don't use other friends as crutches. And I know I should, but I've never been able to truly, fully bring myself to do that.
Do you know why?
No, I don't know why. I can't say I know why. I've speculated. I thought maybe it's through some misconstrued sense of strength. Maybe it's some weird interpretation of how being the crutch friend means you can't rely on others. But I don't truly know why.
I think it depends on the situation.
Mhm.
I think definitely my parents I can lean on a lot. My extended family, like my aunts, my uncles, like yeah, they're there, but they're not people I would turn to with something serious.
Mhm.
So I guess you could say, yeah, I have a lot of support. Probably a lot more than most people do, and I'm actually really grateful for that.
I have a father who is very homophobic, and on top of being homophobic, has a very kind of skewed sense of mental illness, and he is an advisor. So he is someone who people come to talk to and lean on in the same way that people come to me, and I believe he is where I get that quality, despite the rift between the two of us. And I admire and respect my dad, but I've come to learn that he views mental illness strangely, in my opinion, and in a way that's kind of worrisome for my younger siblings. He lets religion be the center of his life. And for the religious people out there in the world, that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, that makes sense as their lifestyle. But it also colors their perception of mental illness as something from the devil, per se. For example, in some Christian groups or family members that I'm familiar with, they won't talk to my dad. My dad won't talk to them about this whatever thing it is, whatever mental illness it is, because they don't have to. They don't need to. They already know it's from the devil. So that means looking into it with a professional isn't important. It's just prayer that matters, and we can have this young child released from the fiery claws of Satan. And that's, as a Catholic, that's silly to me. Mental illness is real, and I'm lucky that my understanding is being fostered in a society that has people who see it differently. But partially because my dad's an immigrant, partially because my dad's very religious, and partially because he's very studious and very intelligent, they all come together to show me how religion affects the perception of mental illness.
I find myself like comparing myself to others a lot, and that like gives me kind of like social anxiety because I'm worried about what I look like a lot, like what I sound like to people, just how like I present myself. But I'm starting to just like keep telling myself I don't need to constantly compare myself to other people. Like, I am who I am. I'm happy with who I am, and that's like helping me a lot more. Just to kind of like calm myself down, just be like, just focus on you. Like, you are who you are. You don't really need to change that. So.
Formed from just the pressure of people as well as social norms kind of coming. Because when you're in middle school, you're in an environment where societal norms are kind of pushed on you, as well as just trying to figure yourself out in that prepubescent stage and not having very little support during that. Because in that time, a lot happened with counselors not being able to be there for different situations, bullying, that sorts of stuff, especially if you're different at all. Especially during middle school, I found out people don't like that.
Not in high school, but in middle school I got bullied a lot, I got pushed into lockers, and, kids are just annoying, toxic in locker rooms and things like that. I got pushed into the girls' bathroom by this one kid, all sorts of crazy things, called names, picked on, and that's part of life, I would say, and shouldn't have to be. You know, people should just treat each other kindly and with respect. But I think it's made me stronger and realize, hey, like, you don't know what that bully's going through, or what's going on at home. Just try to be the bigger person. In high school, I haven't really gotten bullied per se, but you know, some people can. Oh, I guess I had a little bit this year, but I would say the biggest thing, if you are being bullied, you know, talk to an adult or stick up for yourself, or have friends that you know, like if you're shy, that you know will not be bystanders but stick up for you. Another thing I guess could bring on anxiety is like, especially if you take AP classes, like a lot of teachers can assign a lot of homework at once, and especially before break, which is kind of annoying. Which, you know, especially for kids that have extracurricular activities, that can be a lot for them and a lot on them. Another thing I would say is, I don't know, just teachers. Some teachers can be mean, or some kids can be mean. Just treat everyone kindly and with respect. You don't know what they're going through. Like I said before, this is the biggest thing. And you don't know someone's circumstance. Hey, this person has depression, anxiety, ADHD, anything really. Like, just realize some people are different and try to be there for them. And I guess I would say, like, for teachers, maybe they could be like a little more forgiving, or with those particular things and assignments. And I think, you know, we should do more training, like mental health first aid training, you know, because most people don't really know how to respond to it, or what they're supposed to do, or help with it. And you know, maybe, you know, that could help people and kids, you know, who have anxiety, depression, or feeling suicidal, or getting bullied. You know, if we have these programs or something in place that would help for that, or train for that, like how to deal with those situations, that would probably help or relieve kids' anxiety, and that would probably also bring the grades up, which would be, that's a win-win for both students and teachers, I would say.
I definitely feel like the workload at times can hurt it a little bit. Sometimes it is just like so overwhelming, because I do try to like cram up my schedule with like AP classes, but then I like think it over and I'm like, I would rather be doing something that like challenges me and keeps me busy, instead of making myself bored throughout the day when I know I can do more. But I'm starting to like school a lot more. I've definitely tried to form better connections with my teachers, to try to like, even if it's just going to ask them a question after class, I feel like they appreciate you more as a student and are more likely to like talk to you. And I just feel like I am more comfortable opening up to them about something if I felt that I like needed to throughout the day. If I needed somebody to talk to, I feel like I could rely on one of my teachers.
For English class, I remember being buried with homework for English class and pretty much no other classes because of not even just books, but just repeat assignments.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're doing that every single time, and sometimes you don't get to stuff, it lowers your grade, because I've had experiences myself where I didn't turn in a couple things. My grade went like 50 from like a 70 because I didn't turn in a couple things. And while that is my own self-responsibility, it was unnecessary work, to say the least. I know that looking at it in a negative light, there's always going to be someone who's judging you, who doesn't like you, who doesn't approve of what you're doing. And a school is probably one of the number one places that's going to happen, because everyone's so consumed with themselves that they just think that they're constantly doing the right thing and they're that person. But looking at it in a positive light, it's actually helped me a lot. I get most of my confidence from my academics and things like that. And there are a lot of great teachers and staff at school, and they're just all so supportive.
I have a crying stall at school. Like, it's so bad. Like, having to go to school every day. Like, having a mental illness. Like, there's just so much to worry about. And there's, like, the pressure of, like, teachers and, like, like just disregarding like the social aspect of school, like like what we need to like achieve to like receive a high school diploma sucks. Like it's so one-sided. Like if you have a bad day and like you take a test and that sucks, like that would be the rest of your high school career. Like that would be there, like on your transcript. And I feel like teachers don't do a good enough job by making you feel like good about your intelligence. It's like I've always felt dumb. Like I've always felt like I was the dumbest one in the room or like unable to answer a question, but I feel like if they're just able to like involve like us like in like the class and be able to like to step us aside and say like I know like you have a mental illness, like what can I do to help you with it and to achieve like academically like successfully. I feel like that's something that every school system needs.
What do you think is like holding them back from doing that?
The fear about talking about mental illness or bringing it up to the table, because it's like they just think it's a mental illness. Like they don't really see anything by it because it's such a common thing for teens to have mental illnesses, but it's because of like the structure that we've set for teens and for kids. Like it's so unfortunate that they just see it like as something so small, like and something to like kind of avoid or just like not notice. Cause like once I went to partial, like all my teachers were like, I never like noticed. Like I wouldn't guess that you would be the one going to partial. And it's like, how can you not know? Like they try to act so much more like teachers than like friends.
Mm-hmm.
And like I feel like it should be, like I get that they have to teach, but we're also like kids that are messed up, and we need to have adults that we could trust and talk to, or at least like somewhere to go when we're at school, or else like kids want to have a crying stall. I feel like teachers lay such a stressful. Oh, scratch that. They made things so much more worse, like so much more stressful, like disregarding like the hours of homework that kids already have. You know what I mean? Like it's like, I don't know. Like it's such a hard concept school because like they're trying their best, but they're using methods that they've used like 10 years ago. What like messed our generation up? Like those like the ways of teaching and like ways of being a teacher that they've learned doesn't really work in this like age, I guess, now. Like things are just changing and becoming so different to where like it's hard to know like what teachers can say or do or like what the school system can do because like I don't know.
I would definitely like to hear the teachers talk about like if you do need a break for some reason, like it's okay to take one. Like school doesn't need to be your number one priority at all times. I feel like we do have like the academic like emotional learning stuff, but I feel like it isn't really emphasized that much. It's kind of just like this and this, like you have people to talk to if you need to, but I don't feel like it's really emphasized how many students are really struggling with this stuff and the teachers don't even really know about it.
Yeah. If there was something that you could tell your past self, like before you started therapy and started learning the different coping mechanisms and started getting better, what would that be?
I would tell myself that it's okay to feel like this, that a lot of people do feel like this, and there's nothing wrong with you if you need to go talk to somebody or if you need to take like medication or something. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just like just a part of your journey. Everything happens for a reason and it's gonna be okay.
And probably one of the most important I'd say is you're not alone. I would also say things do get better, as cliche as it sounds, and it's true. And something that my mom told me, and it's kind of cheesy, but it's true. Like, this is only a small portion of your life. Like, and things may seem like a lot right now, especially like with teen anxiety, like, and how that is. But it's not as big or a problem like as it seems at the time, and you will get through it one way or another. And again, with the like bowling, just realize you're the bigger person, and just find a coping mechanism that works for you. There's a lot out there, and if you are going through anxiety or depression, well, even though this is supposed to be me talking about my past self, talk to a doctor, talk to your parents, anyone, family, friends. Hey, I'm going through this, can you help me? I'm having a hard time, I'm kind of down in the dumps. And someone, if you have a true friend, they'll be there to help you. If not, talk to mom and dad, or your doctor, and try to see what works best for you. If maybe it's a chemical imbalance kind of thing, then you might take medication. If not, recommend counseling and just coping mechanisms and praying on it, and do everything in your power in your hands that you can to try to attack the problem, because sometimes anxiety will come and depression out of nowhere, and you can only do as much as you can, what's in your control, to try to stop it or prevent it.
If there was someone out there, like, what would you say to a friend or someone that was hurting right now?
The person that comes to mind is Ryan Nagel. I wish I just could have told him like it was gonna be okay. And he had like a lot of friends, and it just hurts to know that he didn't feel like he could talk to any of us. He felt like that was the only way out.
I definitely think it'd be helpful if the counselors were a little more available. Like, I understand they have jobs and they have meetings. They have to attend to things like those. But there's also times where it's like you're not supposed to be in the counseling office right now. You're supposed to come during lunch or study hall. And it's like sometimes you're at your breaking point and you can't hold that off. Same thing with staff. They're kind of, if you're in a class and you just feel like you can't take it anymore because it's just one of those days, and the teacher won't let you go to the bathroom, to the counselor, or anything, I think that they should know, they should be able to kind of detect when someone's like that, when someone's just in that downright bad mood.
I feel like everything was so like structured in the past, like it's only this way or the next, and as we're growing and discovering new things, there's like a lot to struggle with, like as far as like self-identity and a lot of other stuff, and especially with everything like going on in the world around us, like this is like the new normal. Not saying that everybody like is like suffering from something, but that it's not like there's not something wrong with you. Like a lot of the times it literally is like a chemical imbalance, and you really can't help that, and like you just need to support people whether you understand it or not, because like you might be suffering from it yourself and you don't know because you're not open to the idea that it's not just like black and white, it's a lot more than that. They need to look at the facts. Like there have already been like staff members and students who have like taken their lives because they didn't feel like they could talk to somebody or something like that. And even if you did need more counselors or something, that's a step to take then, and we're not even there yet because you're not open to the idea of helping people who really need the support and who don't have that outside of school. And I think it's kind of unfair to think, well, just because we don't have the resources for that, that you shouldn't be open to supporting the kids who need it now.
To bring up, like you said, you were talking about Ryan last year, with everything that happened, do you believe that the school is doing their part in trying to help students with mental health, or do you think they're kind of trying to brush under the rug a little bit?
I kind of feel like it's a little bit of both. They're kind of just touching the surface, saying, okay, this is something that's happening, and there's resources here if you need it. But I feel like they're not really going into depth, like saying, okay, you can come take a break during school, like you can come talk about this, this, and this. Like we're really not going to tell anybody, we're here for you. Like if you feel like you don't have anybody, just come get to know us, even if you don't want to talk about that right away. I feel like the counselors also kind of need to put themselves out there more, even if it's just like besides the time for scheduling classes, having like a little block during the day to come get to know you, so if you do feel like you need to talk to them, you're not scared to do so. I feel like some of the times I would like tell my teachers I'm stressed, and like they think I'm kind of just like kidding around. They're like, oh, well, you're fine, like this is AP, like you knew what you were signing up for. If you don't like the work, drop the class. I can handle the work, but I feel like they're not acknowledging that some students do need a little bit more time to do stuff, and they are capable of doing this stuff, and maybe communicating more with like other teachers as far as like when their projects are and all that stuff, to try to make our schedules as stressful as possible. Even the teachers themselves have said that we get more work than college students. So why should we be so overwhelmed now and scared of like the next step in our lives because they're not helping us to deal with like what's in front of us? I feel like the students are the ones who need to speak up and kind of start the cause, because we're the ones who are experiencing it. We know what's going on, and I feel like I'd be more likely to follow something that was student-based instead of a bunch of adults who I feel don't really relate to me on something and they don't fully understand what I'm going through.
I had to convince myself that that wasn't true.
Was that hard?
Yeah. Yeah. I would write it down every day that somewhere along the lines someone had made me feel so terrible about myself that I just did not want to exist, and that wasn't my fault. And it took quite a while, but I think I sort of got it in the end.
Did you open up to anybody or reach out for any help?
Not for a while, I didn't. Came to the point where my stepfather, when he adopted me, he kind of said, like, if we're gonna actually go through and if we're gonna pay all this money, then you have to open up to us. Like, you live with us now, and you gotta tell us what's going on. And I think at that point, I just broke down and I told them everything. And I was like, it's too much for me, I can't do it by myself. And he said, well, no one told you to do it by yourself. So that's when I kind of started reaching out to them.
How did you feel when he said that?
I was kind of scared because they didn't know that side of me. They didn't see just any of it. They didn't see me crying at night. They saw this bright little girl who was laughing and running around and jumping and just wanting to play games and do things all the time, and I was terrified that they were gonna be sympathetic towards me, and I didn't want sympathy, I just wanted help.
When you said they didn't really see that side of you, were you living mostly with your dad?
No, I was living with them, but it was to the point where I wasn't going to school, wasn't getting up in the morning, I was staying in bed all day. I only came out of my room to eat the one meal a day that I wanted, and I locked my door the rest of the day. And if they came up to say something or ask me if I needed anything, I'd say no, I'm fine.
How long did that go on for?
Probably about a year. It was when we first had moved out of my grandmother's house, and my parents had started fighting a lot more. And it was kind of straining to listen to it all the time. So it was easier for me to just lock the door and sleep, and things like that didn't stop until we moved out. When I start to think about it, and if I start crying and feeling sorry for myself, I feel like I've earned that right. Going what I've gone through in my childhood and my past, even things that I'm going through in the present, I feel like as a human I earned that right.
When you're upset, does releasing your emotions, like through crying, does that help you?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't help, but it always makes me feel a little better. I think writing it out helps a lot. I think if I write out how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling like it definitely helps me to realize if it's something that I can get over in a couple minutes or if it's gonna take time.
Did you get into journaling yourself, or were you recommended? Did someone else recommend it?
I can't really remember. When I know when I was younger, my father would have me write down things about my stepmother that I didn't like and give it to her. And I felt like for a while I didn't want to do that because I knew she was going to take it the wrong way and I was going to get in trouble. So I kind of put it down and I went back to it again a few years later, and it actually really helped me to understand why I was feeling like that.
When I'm around more people, it's kind of like we're here, like in the moment. Like even if it's like just at school, like I like to like be able to be me, and like very few people actually criticize me for being me, and that's very great. Cause like there was once a point where like I was like hated for like being gay and being like who I was, and like being branded as like weird or like an outsider. So like being able to be around people and talk, it's like probably one of the best feelings ever. Cause like that average week, like I talk only if I have to. Like I don't want to say anything really much out of line. It's just being around people kind of makes you feel different. Like I don't know, social, I guess.
Do you see a therapist regularly?
Yeah, every week or over the summer every 2 weeks. I love her though. She's probably like one of the best people ever. I'm glad I have a good therapist because I feel like if you don't have a good therapist, that just makes things so much worse. Like, and that it's what I need, like someone to listen.
How long have you done therapy for?
Since 8th grade. I don't even know how many years that is. Like three and a half years about. Yeah. I didn't stick with the same one though. The first one I had sucked, so I had to go.
What kind of things have you learned through doing therapy? And like talking about what you're going through?
Life will always find a way to suck. But like being able to deal with it and to like know what's best for you and like only you. Like don't like take other people into so much consideration. Cause like you're the most important person in your life. Like without you, you wouldn't have a life. And like to take that for granted or to like not see that as something special, like happens. But always having like a therapist to like remind you of like the life lessons or like have wise things to say, it just helps with a lot. I paint so much. I've gone to the abandoned subways and I spray paint like all the time. I longboard, but most of my coping mechanisms I do like alone. It's like I feel like if you have to once rely on people to be around you, it's kind of like you're relying on too much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like people have their own stuff that they deal with, and like somebody can't hang out with you all times during the day. So like learning how to like be alone and like cope and to like be able to calm yourself down in like a healthy way is like very important. And like my diet, like I've changed my diet so much, like for the hopes that it would make me feel better, and it has. Like it definitely has had an like impact on me.
What changes have you made?
I stopped being so hard on myself, because like I feel like I'm very quick to like put myself down and to like tell myself that like I won't be anything, or like I don't know. I feel like my ways of expression help me, like writing and poetry and like listening to music or making music. Like it just something about it like being able to put my thoughts into something is kind of like something I hold close.
Those coping skills that you used, did you find them on your own, or were they recommended by your therapist?
The only one that I used that was recommended by my therapist was square breathing. And that's just like when you like breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and wait. Like that helps, especially when like I'm about to have a panic attack, or like I just feel like I need a breath. But most of them like I found by myself, or like I just like picked up, like when like I actually started to realize I had depression. Cause like I've been writing for like ever, and that's just always been something that I go to. Cause that just really makes your depression so much worse, especially when it's like with the meds and like I just really dug myself into a hole, and like being able to climb up from that was probably like one of the hardest things. Cause like I would always like go back to it, but it's never as unhealthy as it once was. So when I would like harm myself, it was always just such built up hatred and anger for myself. And there was nothing that really triggered it either. It was just more like, I think I deserve this, so I'm gonna do it. Or like when I would like drink, I would be like, I would rather be like high or like drunk. Like I would, like anything to like just not be so in my head. But most of the time like, it would be fine for like a little bit, but then I would just go right back to where I was. Or just like, worse even. It's like, it's a process, like even self-harm, like being able to get over it. Because it's like, it's something that sticks with you after the first time you do it, because you're like, that's something I can go to. But being able to like, tell yourself no, or like, hide objects that you could use is like a big step that like, I was shocked that I took, but it's definitely like improved my life since.
When you are in like those lower points, what makes you feel the most validated in your feelings?
Being heard, like being able to talk, or just like not even necessarily have someone say anything back to me. Like I would talk to my cat, like that would be what I do, and that's just like it's so dumb, because like I'm just in my room talking to my cat, but like just being able to talk and put my feelings into words, even though if it's not the right words, like as long as like, it's like I'm physically letting it out, like by talking about it, or just like venting about it. Like it's just one of the best things I think we have like out there, like just simple communication without like any grudges or like being like pessimistic or something.
The biggest factor was probably time. It just took time. I don't know if there was a specific thing or person that could bring me up out of that. I know my advice to other people has always been find distraction in things that you love doing, and I'm bad at following my own advice, but I suppose doing that over the course of many weeks helped until I didn't let it crowd my mind anymore. But I can't pinpoint a certain thing that helped me get out of that low point. My parents and some friends do occasionally notice when I am down, and will attempt to talk to me, or my parents will offer therapy, not through themselves, but finding somebody. But I haven't taken that up.
Is there a specific reason why?
I guess it just goes back to that same question of why don't I open up to other people. I don't know. I don't think there's a specific reason, but there's that generic, falsely publicized taboo on, oh, if you seek help, then you're weak, or if you seek help, then you don't fit in. And again, in my heart, it's not as easy to recognize in my brain that it's a silly thing to say. and even saying it out loud, you hear how stupid it sounds, but maybe that's some form of implicit bias I have. Okay, little backstory. I did have a chance to open up to a professional before, and it was a nun who was also a therapist, and I didn't. In fact, being with her and speaking with her, even though she was very good with her intentions, it just taught me how to answer therapists better, and like how to kind of fool someone into making them see or think or believe that I'm okay. And that's not good. I know that's unhealthy, and I understand that in my head, but talking to therapists or talking to friends, I'd probably say is on the same level, in that I'm not willing to open up to them for the same reasons. Or no, not for the same reasons, for different reasons, but the same level of closed-mouthness. If I look at a friend and versus a professional, the friend I have different experiences with, and I have different memories with, and I have different willingness to talk about certain things, versus a professional or who is a stranger by design. I don't really have any prior knowledge, but I won't say much of anything in the same settings.
Do you want them to think that you're okay? Even if you're not?
Yeah, I think so. And we've talked today about certain issues I have, and the people that I meet on the street don't know about those issues. The people I meet in college won't know about those issues, but the way I present myself won't let them be privy to any of that information. So, and that's intentional on my part. So I don't think I do want them to know. Not because it's some big secret. Like if they ask, I'm willing to talk to them about it in the same way that I'm willing to talk to you guys. But yeah, that's intentionally kept quiet at first. A more extensively trained guidance team, and a bigger one, because often if I go to the guidance counseling center or whatever it's called, I forget, they won't be available. And I know that has to do in part with just how few there are to student, and there should be more counselor to student ratio, should be a higher ratio, so that people have someone ready and available if the need arises. In addition, I'd say either a built-in time or a built-in space, physical space in the school building where you can go to just let off steam, to breathe, and take a break from the stressful school environment, because the hallway doesn't cut it, and adults, faculty, staff don't like kids in the hallway for that reason. They like them in the classroom, and sometimes there's a legitimate need to be out or away that doesn't have to do with the bathroom or being in a meeting or being called home. So just a space. And probably lastly, I would hope for more education that is done school-wide. Maybe not to the entire school at the same time, but so that all the kids receive, in some way, shape, or form, information about mental health that lets them know that they have a way to be listened to if they need it, and at the same time encourages them to be understanding and welcoming of mental illness in their midst, because it's there, and goes under it goes unnoticed and underappreciated in a sense. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just is unrecognized sometimes, and it's important for the school to recognize that, and not just the faculty and staff, but also the students, because the student is what makes the school, really. And without their full understanding of mental health and mental illness, then the school environment will remain toxic.
Are there specific things that you think that they don't understand or that they need to know to better help the students?
I think they need to know that mental illness isn't uncommon. They need to understand and recognize that it's something that affects more people than they realize, and they need to recognize that it is not something that someone chooses to go through. I hear often, sadly, that you can just stop, and that's impossible. You can't. It's not a switch that you can flick, and it's a very scary notion that some kids are out there, or many kids are out there, with the belief that you can just stop being upset or stop being depressed, stop being anxious, and that's not how that works. There are a couple other things, but they don't come to mind right away.
I've been meditating like a lot lately, almost, I don't know, like I do it before I go to sleep, but daily like guided meditations, like once a week maybe, and that helps a lot. I ride my bike like every day, which obviously that's good for your physical health, but it's also good for your mental health because it just keeps you clear, and if like it keeps me like, it's kind of like my own time to relax and like get away from everyone, because I just go on a trail and there's really like nothing around, which is kind of cool. Going to church and just praying, things like that, whether you're religious or not, I guess. Another thing, yeah, exercise, which helps, and like I said before, playing piano, that's, for me, that's my thing, that's my hobby, which, you know, it's my own time, my space to do what I want, and also just kind of is soothing and relaxing, and, you know, singing and just messing around and having fun, I guess. Just be more easygoing on kids that are going through mental health issues. Like, I get that you're adults and you have to give out work or things like that, or it may not seem like a lot because these kids are just, you know, you're like, back in my day, or these are just kids and they're teenagers and life, there's a lot more harder things down the road, but times are different for one thing. Kids get really stressed and they have a lot on their plate. You don't know exactly what's going on in their life, whether it be their home life or something else, or, you know, maybe there's a death in the family, something like that. And just be respectful to everyone, obviously, but I think we should definitely put something in place, some kind of, I said it at least twice or 3 times now, but I think that we should definitely put in a mental health first aid training of some sort, or, you know, social emotional learning, because there's been a little bit of talk about it, a little bit of starting with it, I know, with some teachers or the counselors, but I think that's something that we should definitely put in place, and it may seem cheesy, and some kids may be like, why are we even doing this, they don't get it, but it's for the greater good, and the majority of kids, you know, a lot of, not even if you're going through anxiety or depression, but a lot of kids get very stressed very easily, especially with all the AP classes, and especially during that time where you have all those AP tests and SATs and signing up for college, and all these things are on your plate as once, and these kids are only 17, 16, 15, just, I think the staff especially should just do as much as they can to help that.
I think that I would want them to know that there are so many different types of mental illness and they all can't be treated the same way, that everyone needs a chance to speak out about their experience and how they're feeling, and that not everything's going to work for every person.
Just kids should have the right to seek out mental help for anything that they're experiencing, because we all have different levels of anxiety, depression, that sort of stuff. So if you're needing help, definitely look towards just a therapist, just someone you can talk to, because people need an outside source. You can't just rely on friendships and such.
I would say that no one knows you better than yourself. No one knows what you need more than you. If you are trying to help someone, to go to them, to ask them, to keep honesty in the relationship. I guess to always reach out, always have the knowledge in the back of your mind that everyone's going through something. There's always something that someone isn't telling you, and that everyone has stuff, and that I think your mental health comes before almost everything else, because without a healthy mind you can't do things to the best of your ability.
You need to talk to the students to make sure they're okay. I know I right now would not feel like comfortable talking to all the adults in the school because I feel like they're not fully knowledgeable about like the extent to like what we're struggling through and all that. And I feel like social emotional learning should definitely be more emphasized this year, and we should try to get as many students involved as possible. Because I feel like the more students that start the cause, the more students around that will be more willing to share their stories and kind of help each other and support each other.
Stop being so mean. Like, it's not hard to be, like, a decent teacher and to have, like, a heart for the kids that are in your class. Because, like, we all really try our hardest. And it's, like, so sometimes, we don't become so successful, but that's also part of our relationship with, like, a teacher, or, like, just how the school system makes us feel. Like, please try to make it more comfortable for us, because it's a struggle every day.
Hold on. I would say hang in there, because maybe you're not comfortable talking with me, or maybe you're not comfortable talking with anyone that is in your life right now, but that person or that time will come along when you feel free to finally open up. And I say this to myself as much as anyone else out there when I say that you will be found. When I say that, yeah, it's hard where you are, and it is going to feel more than once like it's impossible. I know I felt that too. But that doesn't mean you can't make it. You are stronger than you know. And the fact that you have made it this far in life, wherever you are, is a testament to the fact that you can continue. It's a testament to the fact that if you don't let go, you will flourish. Because in the deepest moment of your failure, in the deepest, darkest, saddest moment of whatever terror is going on, you are beautiful. You don't know it now, but you have the power to reinvent yourself endlessly. That's it. That's your beauty. You can do whatever you want, and it sounds cheesy, it sounds like a cat poster or some mom talking to her child, but it's true. It doesn't mean you ever have to look at yourself and hate what's there, because I know that happens, and I know that will happen. But if you only had the chance to see with my eyes what I see in you, you would marvel at that beauty. Hold on. Keep your chin up and never forget to breathe, because you'll make it through. I promise.